After reviewing how the book explains comparative advantage, I decided that it needed a little more detail in order to make the entire table in 5.2 make sense. I have also attached a printout of the slides so that you can print out the slides, compare them to what is in the book, and make some notes if you find it's needed. So we will stick pretty close to what is presented in the book. In this example, both Ghana and South Korea have 200 resources to make cocoa and rice. In this example, both Ghana and South Korea need both cocoa and rice, so they have to decide what they're going to do and whether or not they will specialize or trade. So if each country has 200 resources to make these two commodities, we have to look at what it takes to make each product. Since Ghana uses 10 resources to make a ton of cocoa, with using all the available resources, it can make 20 tons of cocoa. If it uses all available resources in the production of rice, then it will make 15 tons of rice. So Ghana loses rice if it makes cocoa, and it loses cocoa if it makes rice. It is the same thing for South Korea. Now, in this case, since Ghana has 200 resources and South Korea has 200 resources, they may decide to put 100 resources toward the production of cocoa and 100 resources toward the production of rice. And that changes the numbers to what you see here. Ghana will make 10 tons of cocoa and 7.5 tons of rice. And South Korea will make 2.5 tons of cocoa and 5 tons of rice. Now, from a world perspective, the world has 2.5 tons of each commodity. And if we look at comparative advantage using this method, and there are others, we can see that Ghana can make 4 times as much cocoa as South Korea. Ghana can also make 1.5 times as much rice as South Korea when using the same resources. We can say here that Ghana has a comparative advantage in both of these commodities, but we can't leave it here. Let's say that Ghana moves to take advantage of its comparative advantage position, and it voluntarily increases production to 15 tons. We know that it takes 10 resources per ton to make, so that means Ghana consumes 150 resources in the production of cocoa, and that leaves 50 resources for rice, and they will only be able to make 3.75 tons of rice with the remaining resources. Now let's say South Korea also adjusts, and South Korea decides to specialize. Again, notice that these two countries made two different decisions on how to handle their economy. Ghana ramped up production and Korea specialized. So Korea is going to make no cocoa and make only rice. From a world perspective, the world now has 15 tons of cocoa and 13.75 tons of rice. The world has more. There is always something, but there's also something available now for trade. Now, Ghana and South Korea agree to trade 4 tons of cocoa for 4 tons of rice. Now, the numbers change again. Ghana gave up 4 tons of cocoa to South Korea and gained 4 tons of rice. Now, there is an increase in what can be consumed prior to trade. Prior to trade, Ghana only had 10 tons of cocoa, and now it has 11. It has 7.5 tons of rice, or had 7.5 tons of rice, and now it has 7.75 tons. So South Korea has also increased by 1.5 tons of cocoa and by 6 tons of rice. So I hope that once you look at this video, that you can look back now to table 5.2 and gain a better understanding of what is being reflected in that table.